phone, I can apply for other jobs, but just thinking of places like that where it's really just really gotten out of hand, and the huge benefits that must be attached to radically changing the car situation to begin with something. I mean, industry of course is important, but can you say something about that when it comes to cars? Because I know you know a lot about the automobile industry, and also I was just thinking this experiment that we have ongoing in Sweden now, where we have development cooperation much more focused, I understand, on climate issues, and for the first time we have our climate minister in the Foreign Office. It's a bit early to evaluate perhaps, but if you've seen anything of interest there, that what has changed, or where we're heading with that. It's also linked to the situation in India, I understand.
Unless it's been proven otherwise, I will insist that the glass is half full. And I think with India it is half full, because the environmental situation is terrible. I was in Chennai and New Delhi, and I wanted to leave because the air is terrible. And I was lucky that I could leave, but not many people can't. And when you look at the president's line there, it's to a large degree focused on local health rather than climate, but the solution is the same. So they're going, and they need to provide electricity for 300 million people who don't have electricity by now. That's his main electoral promise. And he's largely going to do that by solar, because he realizes when he does the math that if these 300 million people are all going to, and many of them are also going to be car owners in the future, if they're going to be dependent on fossil fuels on the global market, there's simply not going to be enough. Especially for oil. 300 million Indians asking for oil. It's not doable. Coal might be doable, but then we got the air quality problem. So that's why when in Sweden we say we're going to have a fossil independent transport sector by 2030, there's 3 countries rivaling us in terms of being world's best. It's the recent decision by the Germans to ban petrol and diesel cars by 2030. It's the Dutch decisions to go all electric in 2025. It's not really a strong decision, but it's a will from the lower house. And it's the Indian decision of India to by 2030 have only electric vehicles. Which is surprising. The others are not so surprising. We're rich, developed countries. But India doing that, you need to understand the air quality situation to understand that, why they're doing that. And when I went, and they're largely going to do that by solar. And so when I went to India, I was expecting to see solar everywhere, much like you do in Germany with the energy vendor. And I hardly saw any. And so I asked why, and they said, well, we are not rich. We can't do it as inefficiently as the Germans have been doing it, and as Sweden are doing it now, putting it up house by house, 20 square meters here, 10 there. They're doing it concentrated, large solar factories. The way we haven't been thinking that solar could work, but that it's not working. Sometimes they do these solar towers with mirrors like this, and then you concentrate the solar so you get a lot of energy, of electricity. And so the other thing about Isabella Levin, who's now the Minister of International Cooperation and Climate, I think that mix is great. I'm disappointed with this government in many areas, but one thing that I would praise them for is how they really made sure that everything from SIDA to Business Sweden are now very strongly climate driven. And in fact, they told SIDA that everything you do has to be climate driven. How are you going to do it? SIDA said, this is how we're going to do it. And then they said, this is not good enough. And SIDA had to redo it and come back a second time with how they're going to do it. So everybody knows that they're really serious about how this is improved.
When it comes to another thing that Trump doesn't like is free trade and international trade. How much do you think there is a threat in terms of raising barriers and tariffs and negative development in that area that could basically hinder the development of solar and wind? Since much of it is produced in China, I guess. So where do you see that moving, or do you see there's a risk in that area?
First, I think you're right. I think that's the main reason the markets went down this morning, because they're very worried about the trade. Then, again, I'm not too worried, because there's more people working in renewables in the US than working with coal. Even though Trump goes for the coal voters, it's essentially the same voters. It's blue-collar voters who install solar as well. So when he starts looking at the numbers, I don't think he's going to be too harsh on that. And if he's harsh, he's going to be harsh on China. If he does that, the US has never been the biggest market for Chinese solar and wind. And global prices are not going to go up because the Chinese, maybe it's the other way around, that global prices that we have to pay for Chinese technology for solar and wind might even go down because the US market is going to be trickier for Chinese. So not too worried for us.
Do we depend on Chinese solar in Europe?
In terms of wind, we don't. I'm half Danish, and I'm so proud that when Denmark, when I was born in the 70s, decided we're going to be number one in wind, and they stuck to it. They are now number one in wind. I mean, people think bacon is the biggest Danish industry. It's not. It's wind. and they're the world-dominating force in wind. So usually that's kind of, even when I was living in Kenya, it was Danish wind power being installed. More than tens of thousands of jobs and billions of export dollars. But when it comes to solar, yes, it's Chinese names.
Kita. Yes. I have another subject related to this, of course. When we talk about when you sit in these meetings, that those are now, you say you are a much bigger group that's more acceptable. It's not only the governments discussing policies and so on, but it's a lot of policy oriented. It's politics, policies. So, but what is done actually to at this level, on those occasions, to actually take examples from our concrete examples from each other, from various industries in the different countries. I'm thinking about, I've attended a few debates on this as well, and also Scania. You know, Scania launched recently a new, technologically is actually the most innovative energy-saving trucks that on the global market today. But there was a big conference in relation to that in Paris here recently, and there was companies like Skanska, for example, in the building industry. You don't know, and they were talking about what should we wait for, how, because we need to act now, as you say, the end, and we cannot wait. So how do we do it? Because there are several ways. There is leadership. There are three issues: leadership, of course, but there is government measures, and should we wait for the government measures to do something? And there is, of course, a tendency in the whole world that industries would rather wait. They would do small things, very small things, which is not enough to meet those goals, and it needs to be much, much, much more. So how can that be done much more at an individual, help the companies at an individual company industry level to improve take energy measures and so on, and change actually their production habits and so on? Is that discussed in concrete way of, by the way of concrete examples in any way?
First, so when you're at the climate negotiations, some of the negotiations are behind closed doors, so everybody who's not a COP negotiator can't go in, but many of them are open. And at any given time, there's going to be 50 or 60 different negotiation streams. That's before we open the Paris Agreement. It's probably even more now. So when you go to those negotiations, there are about very specific points. So at those exact negotiations, they're not necessarily going to be inspired by French Grenelle or by the Swedish 70% target. It's much too technical for that. But the negotiators, before they go to the negotiations, they get the instructions from every national government, and of course the national governments are going to be inspired by saying, yes, we can reduce emissions, yes, it's good for our business. So in overall terms, what they would negotiate for, a tough or a lenient agreement, is very much based on industry performance and country performance. And I think Paris was probably the main change in, everything changed with Paris. Before Paris, major industries would say, let's be a bit slower here and let's see what happens. After Paris, the first thing that happened after the Paris Agreement was that I was called by Lundin Oil. So that's an oil company. It was founded by Adolf H. Lundin. So it's never been at the forefront for dealing with climate change. And they said, come down, don't take the train back home to Stockholm, come down to Geneva. We have a white sheet of paper in front of us, we're going to change our business. because we realized that this time it's for real. This time the whole world agreed, and this time there's a long time trajectory. And we see now that there's $1 billion fund for the oil companies, how they jointly can change. And we see that a few years ago, change was companies like Tesla. The new starters, they didn't have any customers yet, they needed to find a niche. Now you're very right in pointing out Scania, for instance. Now it's big companies that are driving it. Unilever is tremendously important, and many other countries, the really big ones.
I just wanted to make a comment on the transport sector and Scania, of course. Just to show some positive examples too, because we work a lot with France here and together with the embassy. So we have been exchanging and sharing experiences within the transport sector with Petra, was on the roadshow in Lesotho. So it was really in the urban transport sector, and we brought Volvo and Scania together. So what was very interesting is that some, Paris for example, they have decided 80% should be electric cars. And we asked them, where does the electricity come from? Is it nuclear? Is that green? So that's one point. Then we went to the cities outside Paris, to Nantes and Bordeaux and Toulouse. And what was interesting, they are also more open to have a mix of fuels. So we have Volvo with the electrical focus, and then Scania have several different fuels. So that was really interesting to see from the local part of the cities. They have much power today, but they are open-minded sometimes to listen, to exchange for different collaborations, see what you can do with what you have in that area. For example, biogas that you have in customer, etc. And then yesterday, another good example from Bouygues Construction, one of the biggest construction companies in France. It was a conference, Nordic French conference in housing, so it's social and affordable housing. And Bouygues Construction works with Grenoble, when you know.
Yes.
And they showed using old batteries from cars, how they can heat up the houses together with other great solutions. So I think there are a lot of, due to the regulations from the state, the industry now started to find how we can do it together. So it's just some examples of good best practice, I think, also in France.
And sorry, go ahead.
No.
And I think what you're pointing out is, first of all, I'm so glad you did that. The tour around, it was inspiring to follow from a distance.
Next time you'll come.
And then it's also interesting to hear Scania discuss what do we need Sweden for? Because 3% of Scania's market is Sweden, so they don't really need Sweden. But they say that we need Sweden as the proving ground for technologies that we then want to sell to Paris, to New York, to Jakarta, and to Johannesburg. So they said that Sweden is only relevant if we, as such a tiny market, can be a leader in the change where everybody's going. And I think that works on a national perspective as well. Sweden is 0.15% of all emissions. So if theoretically Sweden were to zero our emissions, you wouldn't even be able to notice on a global scale. So Sweden's only purpose must be to be relevant because we show as a model what others can do. And of course France is bigger, but even France is just at about 1% of global emissions. So even France, when France wants to really make a difference, it's not by just doing stuff with your own emissions, but it's by being the shining examples that others could follow.
Hello.
I'm French, so it's always a bit difficult for me. So it was so interesting what you said, and I'm quite interested about your question, how get everyone involved? And if I just list all the partners that you speak about, there is political leaders, there is administrations, there is political party, there is local authority, just mentioned, there is business partners and citizens. And I think that the difficulties for us in France is that if a political leader is quite one, administration is so difficult. For example, in France, for sustainable cities, you have to deal with 7 ministries: housing, energy and environment, industry for the innovation, the city policy for the poor district in France, the culture, and you have foreign affair, and for the foreign affair, you have the diplomacy. Monsieur Fabius was the one who was involved for the COP21, and you have the foreign foreign business part. And this different ministry, you have to share with engineer, architect, urbanist, economist, diplomat, and everyone thinks that his expertise is the first. In fact, they are all involved, and I don't know which is the first. You have to just have an expertise before to say if the problem is social, is the city policy, if the problem is about the history, it's the culture, if about foreign affairs, it's about business policy and so on. And it's so difficult to make them have a common point. And in France, we didn't deal with the political party. I was in a German conference about a program which is about financial help to make some energy renewal in the buildings, and all the party was there, and they all said we have to do something, and if each party has its own solution, but every solution was good. And in France, all the discussion about environment is completely robbed by the Green Party, and the other party don't say anything. The socialists could say that we can share the green energy for the poor. The Republicans can say that there is business opportunity about that, but they don't say that. So to me it's a problem. Business partners in France, most of the construction firms are very small. There is the boss and 2 workers. They don't have any idea that they have to change. But even if all that the solution are cheaper, in fact they don't have a habit. And they just say that they just build 10 houses a year, so it's not a big deal. But on the France, it's 80,000 a new house in a year, and they all also bad about the carbon. And for the citizen, it's the same thing. So it's very difficult to make them share all the points. And I think that maybe you give us a solution with the indices, because I think that we just have to share 3 or 5 indices. For example, business indices or value indices. When you do something good, in fact, you get very, very quickly a good value. All the eco-neighborhood in France, the people don't come in this eco-neighborhood because it's ecological, it's because it's linked to the city. There is public transport, and there is some shops, so you can have a better quality of life. I think one of the big indices is air quality, and Paris we are quite involved about that, and we don't make the link between the air pollution and asthmatic. There is lots of children in France. My colleagues, when Paris said, be careful, there is a bad air nowadays, and 2 of my colleagues are not at the office because of their children or asthmatic. So we just have to make this simple link. And maybe that the third big indices is the carbon indices. And your example about electric cars in Africa is so good. This solution could be good if we have if the carbon indices is good. So I think that, and the best way to involve everyone about the 3 simple indices, business indices or economical indices, air quality indices and carbon indices, maybe just something that we have to put in every contract. And first of all, in the public contract. So if we just have just this thing, just to be aware of that, it could be something very important. Because the problem in France is that you have lots of people who seems, let's say, in France the problem that we have no evaluation.
Right.
So,
I really think that what you're saying here is so important when we leave this room, and we're soon going to do that because people have other meetings. It's that we need to mainstream these issues. It can't be, as you mentioned, a green, even though I like green parties, and I noticed that the French Green Party has a new leader since, I think, 2 days ago. It's very important that it's not a minor party or upstart companies. It has to be much more generalized. I'm perhaps, is it perhaps easier to be impressed as a visitor and as a citizen? I'm fairly impressed with the work that your government has been doing. It gave us the Paris Agreement, and Ségolène Royal and others have been impressive. I've been impressed by the mayor of Paris, how she's been working. Even though it's mainly been air quality, it still gives us the same end result. And I'm very proud with work that we do with French businesses like Schneider Electric, which are tremendous here, Renault, which is a world leader in electrification of vehicles, Valeo, which is really showing the way forward for the automotive sector, and Total, which which was for the longest time not there. But when they came late to the party, but they brought great gifts to the party. So my French glass is half full with good Bordeaux. And I think you can reach it, but I've had Swedish wine. It's terrible, by the way. It's there because of climate change. We now have Swedish wine. So there's benefits even to climate change. But I think that's sort of my main conclusion from all meetings like this. We need to mainstream the issue.
And extremely quickly, there was an improvement. There was a lot of movement in preparation for the COP21, and also when it comes to the legacy of COP21. Because you remember you abolished one quite heavy export credit that was given to Alstom, called co-production, for instance. That had been a big no-no in French politics for a long time, despite international criticism. But in the months before COP21, it was actually cancelled against the will of Bessie in this case, which are usually very powerful.
Yeah,
It's just one example, but
the financial part doesn't discuss with the diplomatic part. And
right,
so
because there was this COP21 goal, so it became a major. I'm sure you know this much better than me, but it seems to me there was a lot of movement, and it's also been ongoing after.
Yes. No more questions, as you say. We have.
Overrun?
No. It was very interesting. And thank you very much for this quick analysis also of the Trump election. To get a little bit more vision nuancée or nuanced image. The environment perspective. I thought of saying something about SNS coming meetings. We are going to have a meeting on the sharing economy actually next time. Then it's Robert Wentrup from Business Sweden that comes in. Interesting in an environment perspective as well.
We will text a lot with confection sharing economy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And then that's the 21st November at the Swedish Club that day. And on the 5th of December, we will talk about education. Ylva Bergström, that had a mission at Sciences Po last year, and she will come and talk about social structures and the impact on education. Next year we have Katrin Marshall, who's coming in the end of January, talking about gender, the economic man, and the impact on power issues. So we're looking forward to see you there too. And I think Gita and SNS Paris, I also want to thank the Swedish Embassy that took the initiative to do this meeting. We have a joint.
The train.se?
Yeah.
COP3, like
COP3.
the COP3 you can follow.
It's a great one.
For those of you who can write Swedish, klimatförhandling.se. And if you manage to write in Swedish, you'll find a guide also.
And one other thing also, we recorded this conference today with Mattias, so if anyone wants to share this conference, or maybe you didn't try to take notes on everything, you can, we have like a podcast on our website, on Swedish Chambre of Commerce, so you can pick it up there.
What's the website?
It's ccsf.rfr.
Easy for everyone but me. ccsff.fr.
Chambre de commerce Suédoise. So, well, we thought as a joint, we co-organized this with SNS and the Chamber. We wanted just to give you a little thank you, extra thank you, giving you this little book that has beautiful pictures of Paris from the 1900s, a time where we did not have so many signs because we had not even built, this is the time when this was a whole agriculture area, everything you basically see here, the Grand Palais, all the museums, nothing really existed, and it was all started there.
This is perfect because I have 6 hours on the train to Barcelona.
Ja.